Oh, hey there, my friend. Didn't see you there. Thought today we might explore the ins and outs of one of the most versatile, popular, and forgiving film stocks of all time, Portra 400. As I take you along a recent trip I took to the prairies to one of the friendliest cities in all of Canada, maybe even the world, Winnipeg, Manitoba. Sure, Winnipeg may not always be the first place that springs to mind when you think of photogenic locations. It's not all, look at me, I'm Paris with my Eiffel Tower, or I'm New York, check out my towering skyscrapers. But it does have an understated charm, like that humble friend who always comes through when you need them, but never brags about it. Also happens to be a city that I grew up in, which is one of the main reasons that I chose Portra 400 to accompany me on this trip, with its smooth and natural color palette, balanced saturation, and relatively low contrast for accurate skin tones and all-around visually pleasing and consistent results. Like Kodak Gold 200, Portra 400 is a film that screams nostalgia to me, and as usual, it did not disappoint. Joining me for this trip was my trusty Leica M6 and my Mamiya 645 Pro TL. Just an amazingly capable camera and all-around beast that's able to perform in any situation. Also joining me was my dad, who was kind enough to come along and keep me company, hold the video camera, and keep us from getting mugged in the likely case that we stumbled our way into the wrong part of town. Our story begins with a quick walk on the south side of downtown in order to shake off the jet lag and warm up the old Shutterfinger. Now, you may not know and may not care that the big defining geographic landmark that divides the city of Winnipeg are the Red River and Assiniboine River that meet at the forks in the heart of the city.
No, I don't think so. It's so bright.
Also, along our walk, we came across some Canada geese, one of the most hated animal species in the entire world, as they're rude, territorial, and crap all over the place without a second thought, kinda like my cousin Dave. Lucky for us, one of the first stops on the way is St. Boniface Cathedral, located in the city's French Quarter, or if you're feeling sophisticated, Quartier Francaise. Suffering from centuries of catastrophic fires, but always rising from the ashes more times than you can count, you're not just photographing a structure here, you're capturing a tale of resilience, etched in stone. Picture this. Sunrises casting dramatic shadows through the grand facade, a skeletal remnant that's more art installation than ruin. And this is where Portra 400 really shines. Literally, capturing the warm glowing tones of the newly risen sun, while still preserving details in the shadows on the front of the cathedral. Of course, it also didn't hurt that I had the Mamiya 645 to give my negative a bit of a boost in size. Now, I'd say you have to go experience this for yourself to really appreciate it, but I think Portra 400 does a pretty good job of showing it off at its peak, so enjoy the photo and you can save yourself a trip to Winnipeg. Right across the street from the cathedral is the Archbishops House, or was his house. I don't know where he is right now. All I know is he never returned my calls, and so I was forced to wait outside like a peasant, rather than being invited in like I was fully expecting. Archbishop's House. Question is... After that, it was time to cross the bridge. I snapped up a couple of these touristy/artsy bridge shots. Again, showcasing Portra 400's versatility here, and really making that blue pop. Yeah, cool. 500. This is here. After all that walking, I figured it was time to emit a little carbon and take the car down south to yet another religious institution that had been burned to the ground, the Trappist Monastery. It doesn't really matter because the sun's behind, but... Now, rumor has it, and some people say that this is haunted, but All I saw there was a bunch of squirrels sweating to death in the midday sun. And on that note, despite it being possibly the worst time of day to shoot film, I figured, hey, let's go for it and see just how hard we can make Portra 400 work to defend its title as best film stock ever. I also figured it was time to give the Mamiya 645 another chance to earn its spot in my already overloaded camera bag.
And that's it, as long as I'm in the middle.
I also found this tree, which I'll admit wasn't anything too special, but for some reason it felt like it was calling to me, saying, "Take my picture." And the whole haunted monastery thing was kind of creeping me out a bit, so I did what the tree told me to do, and we left. On our drive back downtown, we stopped at one of my old neighborhoods and snapped this picture, which I feel does a good job again of showing the lifelike colors and contrast that Portra 400 delivers. But also, if you look close enough at the sky, you'll see those thunderclouds starting to form, which was like a warning to get to high ground as soon as possible. Because boy oh boy, did it ever start to rain.
Oh, it's just insane. Well, it's like it's flooding. It's like literally in the water. Yeah, just like, we're just literally underwater.
The next day, the skies cleared, the sun came out, and so we went back to baking under our universe's flaming ball of fire while trying to capture proof of life. The first stop was the University of Manitoba. Not to learn anything, but to take this picture. And then it was time to get out of Dodge and head out even deeper to the prairies, where the people are tough and the mosquitoes are the size of European swallows. Along the way, we came across this old beat-up Studebaker, and I took what may very well be one of my favorite photos of the trip. Bit of a cliffhanger here, but my top favorite is coming up soon. After that, it was a whole lot more wide open spaces before stumbling across this grain elevator that I knew I had to shoot. Because A, I love grain, and B, I love elevators. Then around back, there was this neat train car. And yes, as cliche as it is to photograph train tracks, I still like them, so I'm gonna keep doing it. Back in the car, our next stop was Twin Lakes Beach on Lake Manitoba. But between you and me, it was the backside of the lake, the marsh, that had a lot more to offer today. 34 more things to offer, to be exact, which is how many little baby goslings, goose babies? Anyway, a bunch of tiny Canada goose babies were there. It took some time to get the right shot, as they were understandably keeping their babies away from the weirdo with the camera, but eventually, after running up and down the road enough times, I got this shot. Now, we saw the blue tones Portra 400 produces earlier, but this time those warm ambers, yellows, and oranges really shine through and make the whole thing feel, I don't know, special. After blowing through half a roll on the Mamiya 645 trying to capture my little goose baby shot, I finally got it, and so I felt I could relax a little and take my time capturing the rest of the marsh in all its marshy glory. That was until I'd had all the bugs I could take, and it was time to get back to the city for a few quick last-minute shots at the museum at the airport, which normally isn't my cup of tea, but this time, the museum delivered the goods. They also had a touchable wall, which came as a bit of a surprise to me, as I was under the impression that most walls were touchable, so you learn something new every day. The real highlight, though, was an old Vickers Viscount airplane from, I believe, somewhere in the mid-1950s. I'm a bit sketchy on the date, but it's safe to say that this plane was made sometime in the last 1,000 years or so. For some strange reason, they just let the general public, myself included, wander on board, hang out, so I took full advantage of this by snapping as many pictures as I could. And I didn't have a tripod, so I was forced to contort myself into all kinds of awkward positions in order to stabilize the camera with the hopes that at least one of my shots would turn out sharp, instead of the blurry pile of garbage that I was mentally preparing myself for. Lucky for me, the Leica had my back that day. And when paired with the power of Portra 400, I ended up walking away with what I'm gonna call my favorite shot of the entire trip. I don't know what it is about this shot, but of every picture that I took during this trip, I just kept coming back to this one. Or maybe it was the fact that I was spending way too long inside a jet fuel soaked airplane, breathing in fumes that were starting to make me hallucinate. Whatever the case, I just love those Portra 400 tones, and I'm not gonna fight it. Just like you shouldn't fight the urge to tap or click this video right over here to check out another film photography classic. So make sure to do that now, and I'll see you in there in just a second.